Hello, New Mexico, and welcome to another episode of Around the Roundhouse, a podcast featuring the policies, politics, and personalities of the land of enchantment from the Roundhouse and beyond. My name is Daniel Chacón, and I'm the state government reporter for the Santa Fe New Mexican. Our guest this week is State Representative Rebecca Dow, a Republican from Truth or Consequences who also serves as House Republicans Caucus Chair. Thank you, Representative Dow, for joining us. It's always really great to see you.
Yeah, it's great to be on your podcast. Congratulations.
Thank you. Representative, for folks who may not know who Rebecca Dow is, tell us a little bit about your personal and professional background and how you ended up running for a seat in the legislature.
Yeah, well, I was born in Oklahoma, Cushing, Oklahoma, pipeline capital of the world. I'm the daughter of a roughie who became a preacher. And so we moved to New Mexico when I was 10, to Truth or Consequences, to pastor a church and serve the community there. And when I grew up and had kids and got married and came back to town, I just saw it from the perspective of a parent or someone trying to raise a family. And we ended up moving back. I was 26 years old and I opened up Sierra County's first licensed child care center. And then over the next 18 years, we added after school programming at all the public schools and infant mental health, home visiting. We were a pioneer in New Mexico pre-K and one of the first non-nurse practitioner home visiting programs in the state, behavioral health clinic, transitional housing, just internships for youth and programs to reduce risky behavior. And poverty, so many of these indicators, the things that have plagued New Mexico are tied to poverty. And so, the majority of District 38 is owned by the state or government, the land. So there's very little opportunities for innovation, development, permitting without partnerships with state and federal government. And, having rare minerals, no mining permits, a lake that no minimum pool, just so many things that were stopping families from thriving. And even though the families we were serving and the children we were serving, they were reducing risky behavior, graduating on time with a post-high school goal in mind, they were leaving the community to reach those personal goals they set for themselves in their future, So the opportunity to run for the House opened up and I ran and I got elected in 16. I began serving in 16. And then, that's what led me to it, is knowing that no matter, we are too rich of a state for the citizens to remain in poverty. And it's the result of bad policies that are keeping us there. So I wanted to lend a common sense, reformative voice that would allow the American dream to thrive in New Mexico.
Had you considered, growing up, when you were growing up, had you considered running for public office, or was it something that came about in
Never.
your adult life?
No, never. I mean, I still like children more than I like adults. My best day is I volunteer in my at my church in the nursery on Sundays, and I get to sing and jump and dance around and play with kids and listen to their funny questions and funny stories. And I just children deserve an opportunity to reach their full potential. And no matter how many programs we started, how many families we served, how they were impacted, the policies in New Mexico. I started coming up here back in the day when we paid more. I'm in Santa Fe today. When we paid more to keep a stray animal at a kennel than we paid for infant care. And so trying to provide high quality services where only 34% of the adults have a high school diploma or higher. How do you find the qualified workforce? And then how do you pay for a service? How do you make sure that children's needs are met in the climate that we were in? So I came up, back in the day, to say, look, we've got to improve early childhood circumstances in New Mexico.
Okay. Representative, you and I got to know each other a little bit better on when you sought the Republican nomination for governor back in 2022. Tell us what that experience was like and what, if anything, you would do different in hindsight.
Well, I mean, I had 3% name ID. In hindsight, I would have made sure that our fair redistricting bill would not have included a loophole that allowed the party in the majority, that's been in the majority for 90 plus years, to go ahead and put their map forward. rather than the ones that aligned with the United States Supreme Court ruling that said no partisan data, no incumbency data, and do not divide communities of interest. So my seat, the speaker at that time, Speaker Egoff, had said, we're redistricting you out of your seat. So I knew it was coming. So we need to find a better way to do redistricting in New Mexico that does not minimize the voice of rural New Mexico and does not take away diversity and perspectives in the capital. So I could see that, our pendulum was swinging much further left than what my district was. But running statewide in all 33 counties and visiting the folks across New Mexico, I can definitely see the disconnect between the values that New Mexicans hold, regardless of their party affiliation, and the very, very far left partisanship that is now in control in Santa Fe.
So I know a primary and a general election are obviously two different animals, but in the primary, do you feel that you went too conservative?
I don't know. I had 3% name ID. And I'm from Truth or Consequences, and I can't self-fund, and I don't think I have regrets, but I did the conversations I had with my consultant would always be around what I wanted to talk about and what polled well. So that was difficult in trying to get through a Republican primary. It'll be interesting to see what will happen with open primaries now when 27% of New Mexicans are independent. Of course, they can't vote for like a Sam Bregman, and vote for, if a moderate Republican candidate announces, they can't vote for both. They have to pick one ticket. But it'll be interesting to see how people pursue the independent vote in the primary.
Mm-hmm. Well, I definitely want to talk to you about redistricting and what happened in House District 38 later. But first, I wanted to ask you about, the fact that we have a growing field of candidates that are running for governor in 2026. Have you considered giving it another go?
I'm right where I need to be. When I was running for governor, the idea of 250 cabinet secretary appointments, you have to put people in charge of these agencies, the commissions, 280 some commissions. And so it's thousands of appointments, and who you would put in those positions. That is a very, very important piece of it, what you can do with rules and regulations. But a governor, to be a reformer and to take New Mexico out of survival mode into thriving, to unleash innovation and economic opportunity, to let New Mexicans' hard work pay off, where they get to keep more of their own money, is going to require at least one chamber. And, I chose to go back to the House, and I'm staying in the House because after the redistricting, which was extremely gerrymandered, a lot of the Senate seats were for incumbency protection, and the House has some seats that are competitive, and we need them. We need every one of them, because just having a Republican governor will not be enough. It will be very, very helpful, and we need it. But we need to be able to get innovation reforms and, some sandbox bills and some innovation in education, whichever, pick an agency. We need to get good bills to a governor so they can sign them.
Representative, we have more Democrats than Republicans running for governor so far, and two of the Democrats, Deb Haaland and Sam Bregman, have higher name recognition and are already off to a pretty strong start in terms of fundraising. Do you think Republicans have a chance of winning back the governor's office in 2026?
Well, based on the data, we absolutely do, because typically New Mexico does 8 years of a Democrat, 8 years of a Republican. And I think that's been the trend. If that doesn't happen, it would be an exception. But the rule is that we kind of pivot back and forth. And if you're not sick and tired of open borders and rising crime and special interest groups ruling the day and getting wealthy, we have our newest billionaire is in the wind and solar industry, and the disparity between hard work paying off and the amount of money that you get to keep and take home. I don't know if people aren't seeing that yet. I think we're trending the right way to have a Republican governor.
Right now, we have the Republican mayor of Rio Rancho, who is announced, not formally launched, but announced his intentions to seek the Republican nomination for governor. Do you anticipate that we'll see a lot more names from Republican candidates out there that will be coming up?
And just that alone, could you imagine, even if the field expands and Mayor Hall from Rio Rancho is on the trail, could you imagine just talking about the differences in Albuquerque and Bernalillo County and Sandoval, Albuquerque and Rio Rancho touching each other? And you've got homelessness and crime and just ridiculous barriers to business success in Albuquerque. And you all you're doing is driving on the same road, and you go into Rio Rancho and you're thriving. And the only difference is one's got Republican control and one has Democrat control. One believe in personal responsibility, accountability, and that when you take a risk, you get a reward. And in Albuquerque, we're giving out basic income to people. So I mean, you can see the differences. So that right there is a stark contrast. I think it's going to be a very interesting primary. And the folks who have talked to me about thinking about running for governor, they all bring something different, expertise to the table. But one thing is they believe in the power of entrepreneurship, innovation. They believe in limited government. They believe in rule of law. They want parents to be in charge of their kids' education and healthcare. And there's no exception in those. And all of that is better than what we have right now.
I don't know if you're willing to make an announcement for someone else, but who might be some of the other names that we can expect to hear from?
Oh, I mean, I think they're out there. You see the blogs and the different people talking about them. I think it'll be interesting. And I'm hearing new people all the time. So I'd hate to, speculate or speak on behalf of other people. But I think, you know, the American dream and the ability to take a risk and have a reward is something that New Mexicans who work hard, they want to see a product for their hard work. They say,
Okay.
I got a raise, but I still have less disposable income. Yeah, it's bad policy. Just wait until you see the new regulations coming out of the Environment Department or Department of Labor, Workforce Solutions. And these are all determined by who's in charge. And we've got a trifecta of one party. And I think people are sick of it.
Well, elections are one of my favorite things to cover as a reporter, so we'll wait and see what
Well,
comes.
I will say this. Some people who run for office statewide and don't succeed, in the minority, leave the state. And that's very disheartening to me because what I saw was a whole lot of really good people who value family and value their communities and want to have a say. It just made me love New Mexico more. It just made me want to fight harder for New Mexicans. And that's why I'm staying in the House.
Okay, fantastic. After the Republican primary for governor, you, as we talked about earlier, decided to run for your old house seat. Obviously, you were successful, but it wasn't smooth sailing for you after redistricting. Take us back down memory lane and what happened in the race for House District 38, because it was actually one of the most competitive and probably one of the races where the most amount of money was spent last year.
Yeah, who knows how much the progressives spent to try to keep a common sense female who believes in conservative values out of office. For the party who is like, vote for women, didn't accept Jane Padrell, didn't want to keep Kelly Fajardo there, didn't want to keep Rebecca Dow there. A conservative woman is not apparently not the same. I really need a definition of a woman. But for me, it was moving across town, one precinct to the east. And so I went from the last row of houses in my little town on the west side to right on the river. So the last row of houses on the east side of town. And my opponent tried to call me a carpetbagger, but I literally had to move on the other side of town. If people have been through TRC, it was just one side of the business loop to the other. And I still, if EGOF watches this, thank you, EGOF, for the redistricting, because I probably would not have moved from the house that we raised our kids in, but I'm sure enjoying living on the Rio Grande, especially right now. We had our grandkids out this weekend and we were catching catfish off the deck. And it's a really, I like my new place. I did realize that, the real estate prices in New Mexico have doubled just in 4 years. And that has a lot to do with the regulatory environment and the rules that we're passing and the amount of money that we're paying for capital outlay and the government jobs, making it impossible for the everyday New Mexican to afford a home or to, start a retail business. So that's another problem that we have, but I had to move. So I'm on a great new location that we're really enjoying. And then I had to run against someone who the district was developed for. I mean, they designed this district with the incumbent in mind and to remove me. And I had to work really hard to get that back. So
May I ask why you believe you had I mean, do you feel like you had a target on your back? And if so, why? Because of your conservative values?
Well, I don't know. I think that when you have a female Republican conservative, we value family, we value hard work, we value the American dream. And most of us are pretty articulate about where we believe the barriers are. And we don't, we're just not the echo chamber of what people expect us to be. And I would encourage anybody out there who's listening to this who hasn't read the Republican or Democrat platform lately to do so. Only one platform mentions God. Only one platform mentions family. Only one platform mentions marriage and reference to the American dream. So I guess some folks, in the Republican Party call me a rhino. I got called a Christian nationalist a lot. I'm like, if Christian values, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not kill, the 10 commandments, love your neighbor as yourself, are considered negative, and wanting to put New Mexicans first is considered negative, put me there. Go ahead. But it didn't resonate with the folks that called District 38 home. So I ended up with 3 precincts left in Sierra County where I live. And I traveled a lot to go door to door and talk to the folks in Doniana and to talk to the folks in Socorro. And they look like the rest of the everyday New Mexican. They have the same concerns.
Representative, moving from, even though it was kind of just down the street, but moving from your home, a home that you raised your children in, to be able to run for your old House seat again, that's a big decision. I mean, what was it that motivated you? Why would you move from your home just to run for the legislature again?
I mean, it really was coming off a statewide race where I met people. I was scared. When we signed up to go to Chama Day's parade, I was scared. I was like, I'm going to get booed. I'm going to get spit on. I'm going to get yelled at. I did not know what to expect because, I hadn't spent a lot of time in northern New Mexico. Those folks were so friendly. I got invited to homes. I got invited to RVs at the rodeo. I got invited to go on the radio and to come see their bar and to come do this and do that. And people were writing checks and contributing to the campaign and stopping for pictures on the parade route because they're just so eager for change. And so, I felt more optimistic about her. I know clearly that the folks that are passing the laws in New Mexico are misaligned with the values of everyday New Mexicans. And it made me want to run. And even we moved into a house that had to be remodeled. We hauled off, oh gosh, we're past 16 tons of garbage at this point. And when it was time to get on the ballot, at that point, we were to a one functioning toilet, a coffee pot, and a bed. And, we're like, we're living there. And so that was to get on the ballot. So you better believe I was going to win. And you better believe that I'm going to be a voice for the people in all 33 counties because their values reflect the values of my district.
Well, as a native of northern New Mexico and a frequent visitor of Chama, I can tell you that we're good people. Buena gente in New Mexico.
Well, and I guess it wasn't, I just thought they're always going to vote Democrat and they're not going to accept me. And that's what you hear. You'll never move past northern New Mexico. I was in San Juan and a person ran up and gave me a hug. I didn't know who they were. They told me a story and said, I'm registered Democrat, but we've been voting Republican and we will continue to do so. And so will our family. And that's because the Democrat Party has gone too far left. I mean, when the person who is the press secretary for Biden changes parties, you got a problem with your party. And New Mexico should be waking up and seeing that New Mexico values family, especially when it comes to education and healthcare decisions, and they're buckling down on these radical agenda.
Well, like I said, the midterms seem like just right around the corner. So we'll see how that all turns out. Representative, I also wanted to ask you to give us an assessment of the 60-day session and efforts to address crime in New Mexico. The governor wasn't exactly satisfied, and neither were Republicans. Did the legislature fall short on the public safety front? And if so, why do you think that is?
Absolutely fell short. It was the anti-crime reform session. And I would say that is because there is an ideology that if you grew up in poverty or if you are a minority, that you are not responsible for your behavior. It's somebody else's fault when you choose to harm yourself or others. Somebody else caused that to you. And so you can't put a juvenile who's committing murder in jail because it's not their fault that they had a bad upbringing. But there is personal responsibility. There has to be consequences for bad behavior, and we have to protect the public. But that is not the direction that this body wants to go. And so the reform bills that were meaningful didn't even get hearings. We had good policies, especially around juvenile crime and fentanyl and reoffenders of violent crime. And those bills didn't even, if they got a hearing, they were moved to table immediately. And instead, no matter what the reform was, Republicans went into that session. We were united in the House and the Senate that we were going to address crime, including juvenile crime, and that we were going to address healthcare, and that includes tort reforms, and caps on medical malpractice. We just had another $40 million settlement of Presbyterian, and that we were going to make life more affordable. So we went in there saying, we've got every coffer, every sock drawer in this Capitol is full. So we should let New Mexicans keep more of their own money, give a credit back for all the oil and gas that's being produced in our state, eliminate taxes, reform the tax code. And none of it happened. And I think citizens are seeing that. They're feeling it. Insurance costs are going up. Crime is going up. There's lies, there's darn lies, and there's statistics. I heard someone say that Albuquerque's safer. It's very rare that I'm in Albuquerque when I don't witness a crime. And so, I just saw the video of a band that performed at Revel on their way to California and their vehicle got stolen, their trailer with their equipment got stolen, or the people who had their U-Haul trailer stolen with their family members' body in the back of the U-Haul trailer. I mean, this is just ridiculous. Or a news broadcaster giving a report in downtown Albuquerque about car theft, and their news, the car gets stolen. The news channel's car gets stolen. Crime is not going down in New Mexico. It's going up because we tolerate crime. We make excuses for criminals. And it's just New Mexicans are sick of it.
Representative, on the issue of crime, as you know, the governor recently deployed the members of the New Mexico National Guard to Albuquerque. Do you think that's the right strategy, or I've heard some folks call it a PR stunt?
I mean, is it a PR stunt? I don't know what she's running for next, but Mayor Keller should be ashamed of himself, and the folks who call Albuquerque home should vote for a different mayor.
That's pretty blunt.
I was dropping off, it was right at sunset, and I was dropping off donations from the house that we moved out of at one of the thrift stores in Albuquerque. And I was just seeing all this movement out of my peripheral vision. And I looked, and it was like I was in a zombie movie, like Day of the Dead or Dawn of the Dead or whatever that is. So all these people were coming over a fence. I never even noticed what was on the other side of that brick wall. It was a park. They're coming over the park. They're coming out of this big dumpster where the thrift store was disposing of things that they didn't want to resell. And there's just dozens of homeless people just coming at the donations I was dropping off in the drop box. I mean, like, what is going on in Albuquerque? You can't take a child to that park. I wouldn't take my grandchildren to that park.
But do you think that the National Guard will play a good role?
I would say that they're probably going to limit their effectiveness. As progressive as Mayor Keller is and his administration is, that he'll do as much as he can to limit their effectiveness.
I wanted to go back to something to the 60-day session. What would you consider Republicans' biggest wins during the session, if any?
Yeah, well, considering that we're outnumbered 2-1, and I don't think that Republicans alone can take credit for this. We are part of it. I would say that the citizens of New Mexico were more engaged this session than I've seen before, and there was more unity between the minority, the Republicans in the House and the Senate, than I had seen before. I mean, I haven't been there that long, but since 16. And I mean, the sheer number of emails and phone calls and people visiting our offices, and they wouldn't let them have public comment. Most of the chairs are limiting public comment to 5 people for 3 minutes each, or 3 people for 5 minutes each, and no one from the same industry can talk twice. So even though they're suppressing public comment in committee and just refusing to hear bills, the amount of people who reached out and just the sheer volume of input from citizens gave a pause or slowed down the process enough that even with every strategy deployed by the majority, which has a 2-1 majority in both chambers, that the bad bills that really, really could have devastated New Mexico did not pass. And some of it was because the progressives said they didn't go far enough, which is so ironic. But regardless, I think we use time effectively. Some people get frustrated if we talk about the tortilla bill or red and green chili month, and they say we're wasting time and money, but time is the tool that the minority has. And I believe that we used it as effectively as we could, as fast-tracked and as quickly as the progressives moved the most egregious bills through. I think we did a good job fending that off. And I think that our communications are getting out a lot more, and we can't even take credit for that. I have to thank X and thank Meta for changing their policies and changing their algorithms, where things that we would say before were suppressed, and now a little bit of the word is getting out, even though most news outlets are not covering, Republicans' perspective as much as we'd like.
Well, I can tell you that the New Mexican is giving both sides, all sides, or at least in my opinion, a fair shot of telling their side of the story. And I hope you feel the same way.
Are you wanting to comment on that?
I don't know if you want to comment on that or not. I'm not looking for a compliment. I just feel like
it depends on who's covering it, I guess I'd say. But you do your best to do that. I do.
All right, thank you, Representative. Not fishing for compliments. I just wanted to note that we do try our best to give all sides of a story. One of the proposals that you championed was a bill to protect women's sports and spaces. Why was it important to you to fight for young girls and women to maintain single spaces? I mean, is that really a pressing issue in New Mexico?
Oh, it's absolutely a pressing issue in New Mexico. We've fought really long and hard. And I'm where I'm at today because of the work of the women who preceded me. And I'm not going to allow that to be for waste. I mean, for us to have Title IX and to have sports and to make sure that it's at parity and to have that opportunity to compete earn the place on the podium, to earn a scholarship to go to college. I mean, those opportunities to have those awards, we didn't fight for that, for it to be given away over, and giving up our spaces. I mean, I look at these women, I got so many questions about, hey, you're in a women majority in the House, and what does that mean to you? I'm like, well, I would hope that we could protect women's spaces. I would hope that we could define a woman as an adult female who has the opportunity or the bodily ability to reproduce. I mean, that's what a woman is. And now we're just saying a woman is whoever identifies as a woman, and it's a social construct. And that's just not true. Men and women are biologically different. They perform different in sports. They have different abilities. And it is not okay to give away those podiums and scholarships and opportunities to excel, to give them away. And there's nobody kicking anybody out of sports. I simply believe strongly, as do 80% plus of New Mexicans, that you should compete with your biological sex.
That
And
bill
it's
did
just
not.
that simple. And you've got Democrats that are introducing bills that not no means no, but yes means yes. You must actively consent. But yet girls are getting no say in a biological male sharing a shower with them, sharing a restroom with them. And that is not okay. Either women get the right to say yes and to affirmatively consent. Either you believe in it or you don't. And so it's a no-brainer for me. And I do not like the headlines of the New Mexico News that says that's a transphobic or anti-gay bill, because it is not. It is not. It's protecting women and competing in compete in your biological sex. No one's excluded.
That bill didn't, I'm sure you were disappointed, didn't gain traction this year. Is that something that you'll continue to push during your time in the legislature?
I will. And that's not the only thing that we promote. Republicans promote family values, and that parents, a mother and a father, whoever these children's biological parents are, their legal guardians are, have a right to raise them as the way they see fit. And that is why, we also introduced a fully funded paid family medical leave that didn't break the bank, but valued families. It's why we introduced the bill that not just promoting abortion. I mean, we had over 20,000 abortions performed in New Mexico last year, primarily taxpayer funded. If you do research on an unexpected pregnancy in New Mexico, it only points you towards abortion. But yet women have lots of options in this state, from housing assistance and childcare and Medicaid and home visiting and pre-K and all the different things that we do to build and support healthy families. We could point them to so much more. So for years, we've been introducing unexpected mothers, a bill for expectant mothers, where they can find a resource guide that doesn't just point them to abortion. We have a population crisis in this state, and I'm proud to be a mom. I'm proud to be a grandma. And there's a lot of women who need their voices elevated, not suppressed.
I know you're big on conservation and actually in reforms on CYFD. Which was the bill that you were most interested in passing this year, and how did it fare?
Well, I do think that I'm glad you brought up conservation, because that is an area of urgent need in the state of New Mexico, whether that is healthy forests, healthy soil, or improving our watersheds. And so to see bipartisan support on conservation efforts, I was really excited about that. The bills that I had around conservation, they were quickly put into House Bill 2. They had bipartisan support. There was little objection to them. And so I'm most excited on that front about I guess there is a federal paraprofessional archaeological survey certification. That's not what we're doing. But in partnership with the Forestry Service, the Department of Ag, SHPO, the Cultural Affairs, we are doing an education, a training on archaeological surveys that will be recognized by the state and will allow people not just to thin a forest to prevent a catastrophic fire, but also in Navajo Nation, you have to have an archaeological survey before you can even build a home. And a lot of fire recovery and vegetation management work on the watersheds all require an archaeological survey. And we don't even have 24 archaeologists in New Mexico. So paraprofessional certification that is going to cost the state of New Mexico an $11 billion budget, $300,000 to get going, is an example of a common sense conservative value solution to a huge barrier. We cannot protect, create these defensible spaces or even recover from a fire and floods that follow fires if we don't have the archaeological survey. So I don't think you should have to have an archaeological survey where you had a 200-year-old acequia that was washed away post flooding from a fire. Why do they have to do an archaeological survey? They're putting back what was there. I would rather deregulate that aspect of it because it doesn't have to do with some undeveloped piece of land. We know what was there for hundreds of years. We didn't get to go that far, but those are the compromises that I think are wins.
Okay. Going forward, what do you think are the biggest issues the legislature will have to address to make New Mexico a better place to live?
I mean, it's going to go back to what our priorities have been, making it affordability. People tell us, I got a raise, but my take home check is smaller because my health insurance went up, because I got a tax increase, because I had to pay a higher union due, whatever it is. So I got the raise. Thanks for the raise. But my I have less disposable income at the end of the month. We are doing things like this heat illness rule right now coming out of the Environment Department that absolutely cripple industry and drive up the cost of doing business in New Mexico. And so we have to deregulate. We've got, if it's not health and safety related and data driven, I'm going to add data driven because you can call anything health and safety related, but where's the data backing it up? When I hear New Mexico bragging about a rule that we're going to impose, that we're the first in the nation to do it, I'm like, we don't have to be the first in the nation to do it. There are 49 other states doing better than us in almost every indicator. Let's look at some of these states that are succeeding. Like if you're talking about education reform, the Mississippi Miracle. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can look at evidence-based data from 49 other states and perform better in almost every indicator. But oh, no. Even California looks at natural gas in their clean energy transition, but not New Mexico. We want to transition everybody to an electric oven. You can't have a gas oven. So, I mean, we've got to deregulate. We've got to do common sense. We are a very, very wealthy government with the poorest people in the nation. So New Mexicans deserve tax reform. We need it. We need it now. And of course, we've got to address crime and we've got to address healthcare. So same things we went into this session looking at are because those are the priorities to the everyday New Mexican.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Well, Representative, am I missing to ask you anything, any other topic you'd like to discuss that I'm missing to ask you?
Yeah, I just appreciate the opportunity to be here. And I do appreciate you trying to be as balanced as possible.
Thank you so much. And again, thank you to Representative Dow for joining us this week. And thank you to our viewers and listeners for joining Around the Roundhouse. Join us every week as we talk to newsmakers in the political realm by subscribing to our podcast through Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. For the latest developments, follow our coverage online at santafenewmexican.com, where you can also subscribe to our political newsletter, The Roundhouse Report. Until next time, I'm Daniel Chacón, and this has been Around the Roundhouse.